hang out for a minute.
Yeah.
Good to hear. So, good evening, everybody. We got a
And do it like the old Facebook lives. The preachers be like, y'all come on here, join the feed, join the stream, y'all come on here, come on. And then you start calling out names. Yeah, thank you, sister so and so for joining. Brother so and so, good to see you. God is good here. Yes, sir.
you still got it. I like it. Speaking of which, I saw that you were actually at church recently.
Yeah, I went to church 2 Sundays in a row.
Wow, and you survived, or they
Yeah.
survived, or the church survived, or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's the big thing is that I I was afraid that if I went in there, the church would like burn down or something.
Yeah, did you warn them you were coming? Or yeah. But it looks like everything went all right, so that's good.
Yeah, it was great. The first Sunday, a friend of mine was in Tulsa. One of my best friends. He's a itinerant preacher, and been
Mm-hmm.
friends with him for almost 20 years. And so he was up in Tulsa, so I came out to show him some support. And then last Sunday, I'm down here in Texas visiting my fiance,
Oh,
and my mom was saying, hey, your nephew is in town. That's my sister's oldest son.
oh,
So he was only going to be here for this weekend. So I said, okay, we'll come down and we'll go to church, because they're all going to church. And
nice.
and then come to find out, my little brother, who's the associate pastor at the base chapel down there, he was preaching. So I'm like, okay,
Oh, wow,
So we
nice,
had a good time.
nice. Well, cool. Glad everything worked out and
Yep.
you made it. And yeah, sounds like a good time. And congratulations on the fiance as well. So
Thanks.
Yeah. So you're not in Texas.
No, I'm in Texas at this moment,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
but
What
I
part of
live
the
in
country do you
Oklahoma.
live in typically?
Oklahoma, Tulsa.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, looks like we got some people starting to jump on here. So,
Come on in, people. Come on in. People, come on.
all right. Now it's time for the debut of something special that Matt put together for y'all. So, sit tight and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Humanity Podcast, where we do the things with stuff for the people. My name's Matt.
And I'm Tommy. And tonight, in addition to that very special intro that Matt put together, we have a very special guest, the one and only Mr. Derrick Day. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Tommy. It's really, really good to be here, and I hope I don't embarrass you guys too badly tonight.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We do that part plenty ourselves, actually.
Yeah, you've seen the show. It's
Yeah.
it's our vibe. It's what we do.
Well, your vibe is my vibe, and you guys are my tribe. So there you go.
I like it. Wow,
Appreciate that.
even rhymes. I like it. I like it. All right, so figured as people may see by the title and description, brought Derrick on to discuss basically a whole range of topics, I guess. Just because Derrick is, like ourselves, former Christian, current atheist, or what was it before the show you said? How do you refer to yourself now?
Yeah, I'm sort of an agnostic anti-theist. Let me just say this: I got to give a shout out to my fiance Maya, because she's a big reason why I've taken this turn. But she's not the only one. It's also my sister Sandy and my co-host Aaron Tomlinson.
Yeah.
That the three of them, they have said things or pose quandaries to me that kind of drove a wedge in my concrete atheism. But I want to say this, and to everybody that's watching, you know, maintain your fluidity, maintain your spiritual agility and your spiritual flexibility. Because if you don't, you get galvanized in one way. And basically, if you get galvanized in atheism, just like you're galvanized in fundamentalism, you're really no
Yeah.
different than those guys, But if you hold out for the possibility of something different, something that challenges your views, that could possibly cause you to evolve or grow, then that's good stuff.
Absolutely. Speaking of fluidity, what you got in the glass tonight?
You know, this is Penelope Rose cask finished bourbon,
Ooh,
That sounds
and
rosé cask. Hmm.
yeah, and I just opened this for the first time. We bought it over the weekend, and I'm just opening it, and this is absolutely fucking phenomenal. I mean, I'm just like, okay, good choice.
I may have to check that out sometime.
there's
Me,
good whiskey in Texas.
indeed. All right, so tonight I'm keeping with. I'm still working through that Three Floyds variety pack tonight with the Black Sun Stout.
Okay,
So
that sounds
pretty
good.
tasty. Hmm.
Well, I
Put that
already
in
threw
the
the
chat,
can out.
man, so people can, they can go and look for it.
What's that?
Yeah, I threw
Put it
my
in,
can
put it in
out.
the chat.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we're talking at the same time.
Yeah. And now no one talk.
No,
Yeah.
I
Sorry, what do you got? What do you got?
I have an Imperial Stout. I threw the can out already. It's from Seventh Son. It's called Doublet, I think.
Well, I
It
saw
was-
it earlier, so
It's like $11 for an Imperial Stout 6-pack, and around here that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's not
Oh,
bad
yeah.
for a six pack of
Yeah.
anything.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I find like most craft beer, even like the basic stuff, like your Sam Adams and Sierra Nevadas, is like 10 or 12,
Yeah.
and that's the cheapest here. But yeah, but yeah. So I guess maybe start with how we got connected with Derrick. I think we first heard of him when he was co-host of the Heretic Happy Hour podcast a few years ago.
Yep.
Well, that's a podcast Matt actually turned me on to. And we were a fan of it even before Derrick was on there, because that was, if I remember the timeline, it was probably back like 2018, 2019, back when we were in our heavily deconstructing but still Christian phase.
Yep.
So things like
Yeah.
that, we were just eating it up. Things like Richard Rohr, his podcast. I'm getting into Rob Bell, Greg Boyd,
Yep.
Peter Enns, all those folks.
Yep.
But yes, then Derrick came on. Yeah, obviously big fan of his from that, and then also getting into his other stuff with live podcast. And I think me and you, Derrick, originally, I want to say we ended up connecting in the Facebook group that
Yep.
was associated with
Yep.
Happy
Heresy
Hour.
After Hours. Yeah, that I ultimately got kicked out of once I left the Heretic Happy Hour podcast, but that's another story.
Yeah, I kind of kicked myself out once I realized, because I was having, some things I posted ended up being not allowed, but then later allowed after discussions with one of the mods, which, to his credit, he heard my side and went ahead and let it through. But I was like, these things, it just seemed like I had nothing against the group. It was just this just isn't where I am anymore.
Yeah.
It was this is for, it was for deconstructing Christians. And at this point I was already atheist. So I was just maybe time to move on, but kept in touch with Derrick. He ended up being one of the people who was reaching out and with words of encouragement and stuff when I first got my cancer diagnosis, and was following me through that whole journey. So greatly appreciate that. And then afterwards, when you were doing, I think you were calling it Atheist Thursdays, the show that turned into Unreligious that Jimmy Liggins doing now. Yep. You invited me on, and I think that was the first time we actually spoke and chatted. And
Yep.
Yeah,
but it was I had
several
to have you
times
on because, dude, you're really, and Matt, I don't know you as well as I know Tommy, but Tommy is fucking amazing, and I knew that his story had to be told, so I had him come on, and And I think that was you came on at toward the end of the show, and that was the first time that I met you, Matt.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I'm always given, like as far as like, um, my story and things I've been through. Like I'm always giving credit to folks like Matt, who like we've been friends for probably like 20 years almost now,
Oh, wow.
and
That's
like
a long
our
time.
yeah, sorry, but it's all right. It's only almost half of our lives.
That's nuts.
So, but yeah, you like our deconstruction journey is kind of like I don't even think we were doing it on purpose. They just happened
No.
to like kind of track along with each other. I remember like we were even having that text conversation where I don't even remember exactly what we were talking about. I just remember you saying, "So are we atheists now?" And I'm just like, I think maybe.
I like to say
So,
deconstruction
but
was forced upon me by a church. Yeah.
yes, yeah,
My wife
yeah. I think we
got
went
let go
into
from a mega church, and it was ugly, and it happened for ugly reasons, and it
yeah,
was
bullshit
yeah.
reasons. Yeah. Yeah, I think we kind of went into that in the first episode
Yeah.
I like
here,
to say
and I'm sure we can.
deconstruction
But
was forced upon me by a church. That was a weird echo. Did you guys hear that?
yeah, I think we kind of went into that in the first episode
Yeah.
here,
So
and I'm sure we can.
Tommy, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That was a weird echo. Did you guys hear
Yeah,
that?
like we're getting a little bit of a.
That in the first.
Here, everyone, just mute real quick.
What are you
If
doing?
that's,
Hang on for a second.
That was a weird echo. Did you guys hear
yeah,
that?
like we're getting a little bit of a.
That in the first.
Here, everyone, just mute real quick.
What are you
If
doing?
that's,
Hang on for a second.
That was a weird echo. Did you guys hear
yeah,
that?
like we're getting a little bit of a.
That in the first.
Here, everyone, just mute. All right. Well, that was weird.
We broke the world.
I hope everyone enjoyed that little bit of our conversation. You got to hear it multiple times.
Yeah. We both
So
did.
anyway, yeah. So anyway, so Matt, yeah, I think we went into that kind of that story about
Yeah.
like your wife. Like I think it was our first episode, and I'm sure that's something we'll get into more later as well.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, we have some more thoughts on that church. So stay tuned for that later. But yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I, among many things, like, greatly appreciate you, like willing to platform me, I guess,
Yep.
and taking an interest in me. Like I said, Matt was always there for me and with me through the whole thing. So it was just kind of cool and kind of surreal that like this guy who's like, oh, was listening to on a podcast. Like I was a fan of his, complete stranger. Then we just got connected, and now all of a sudden I'm on his show, and now you're on my show. It's just kind of coming. It's like several full circles
Exactly.
all in a thing. But
like
yeah, and also like appreciate your like the hand you had in like helping us get this show going. Something we've been trying to do for a while, so definitely appreciate your help with that as well. So all that being said, just in case people watching aren't as familiar with you, let us get to know you and like take as long or as little as you want. Just kind of give your backstory, like whatever you think is kind of pertinent for the people to know about you and your journey and what got you to where you are now.
Well, the thumbnail sketch is that I was in ministry for 30 years. Started off being an ordained minister, and from there went on to become an associate pastor of two different churches, and then I was a senior pastor of two different churches, and eventually consecrated as a bishop in the Lord's church. And basically just kind of went through the whole litany of Christian leadership, if you will, and and it was good. My whole thing was all about how do you help people walk through this thing called faith. And what I learned is that I was really more concerned with helping people walk through this thing called life, right? Because the one thing for me, I've been really, really fortunate. I'm reluctant to use the word blessed, but I'm going to use it in this context because it's contextually correct. I grew up poor. I don't even say poor because we were so broke we couldn't afford OR, right? We were just poor, right? And for to have accomplished the things in my life that I have, in spite of everything, all the odds against me. I should have been dead or in prison and all of that good stuff. The quintessential child of a single parent. Growing up in the hood in Detroit and all of that. Um,
Wow.
so I've done some things and I've experienced some things, and the one thing that I can say is that I have experienced a high degree of success in life. So the thing for me was, how do I help others experience some component or some part of the success that I have, or to exceed the level of success that I've had? Because I've helped people do that also. So when I look back on it, it wasn't so much that I was trying to, make disciples, grow disciples or anything like that. That I was trying to help people maximize their return on their investment in their own lives,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the thumbnail sketch. Now, as far as leaving Christianity, I mean, there were a lot of things, and I've had conversations with people, and they say, "Well, what was the thing? What was the turning point for you?" And for me, it wasn't an
Mm-hmm.
actual turning point. It was a perfect storm of things.
Yep.
I was going through the historicity of Scripture, the canonization of Scripture, how Scripture became holy,
Mm-hmm.
if you will.
Mm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
and when I found out that that was a ruse, that
Oh
that
yeah.
was just a large fabrication, then there was the things that I saw people going through. I have to share this one this one anecdote. During the time when Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Tatiana Jefferson and all of these people, they were being killed by police, black folks being killed by police.
Mm-hmm.
Basically they were murdered for being black, and so I cried out to the Christian community, to the community of leadership that I was part of, and I said, "Can somebody please just speak up and say that this is wrong?" And the response that I get is, "Well, if you just give it over to Jesus, hold on to God's unchanging hand. Don't speak up on social justice. Don't speak up on racism and all of these political things. Just speak love and teach grace and teach Jesus and let Jesus handle it." And I was looking at this and I'm like, "Well, Jesus isn't doing anything. Jesus is asleep at the
True.
wheel." And I had an issue with that. And so what I did, I came up with a thought experiment. And my thought experiment was this. It involved the word fuck.
Ah,
Because
those are the best
the
ones.
word fuck is the Mac Daddy of cuss words. There is no ambiguity to the word fuck. You can say, like, I've heard preachers preach and they talk about the shittim wood that the ark was made from, or they talk about Balaam's ass and they talk about getting your ass in gear, and they'll talk all they'll use all this alliteration to to try to illustrate things, but you can't do that with the word fuck. You can't. There is no way of spinning the word fuck. So what I
Yeah.
did is I started using some social media posts that involved the word fuck, and what I found out is that all of these people that were telling me just give it over to Jesus, they were really offended
Mhm.
with the word fuck. They were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that a man of God would say the word fuck in a social media post. I can't believe that you would use this in a public forum this way." And I'm thinking to myself, I said, "Okay, for all of you that commented on this, you have been unwilling and unwitting participant in a thought experiment.
Mhm.
And this thought experiment simply says that Christianity is more obsessed with the use of the word fuck than they are with black people getting killed."
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And when I saw that, plus,
Mm.
I because I had one son that had I don't know what you would call a pediatric epilepsy, and I have another son who's a type 1 diabetic. I spent a lot of time in children's hospitals. And when you go in a children's hospital, your kid is in there and you're like, it's horrible that my child is in here. But then you look at these other
Yeah.
parents, kids with cancer, kids who are missing parts of their heads, kids that are in a vegetative state, kids that can't speak, kids that can't walk, can't talk. And I'm looking at this and I said, okay, if I had God powers for 24 hours, the first thing I would do is I'd fix all these babies.
Mm.
That's the first thing I do. Everything else, world peace, racism, poverty, all these things. These are all noble causes, and if you use this as a thought experiment, people will say, if you have God powers for 24 hours, what would you do? And they come up with all kinds of noble things. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, okay, if we would do those things, and God doesn't, but God is all
Mhm.
powerful, God is omnipotent and omniscient, then we are more moral than God. And that was a hard
Man.
one. When that one hit me, I said, I just can't participate in this anymore. And I resigned from everything. I walked away from everything. I said, I just can't do this. And then I see Jimmy has said he talked about um, Jesus doesn't exist, and that was kind of like the final straw for me.
Yeah.
And this was like right at the end of my Christian journey, when I began to look at the evidence, and there is neither empirical, archaeological, or um, anthropological evidence for the existence of an historical Jesus. So watch this.
Mhm.
If you were able to say, prove empirically that there was no Jesus, I ask Christians this all the time. What does that do to your faith? What does that mean to your faith? Because we're coming up on a
Mhm.
time where either there is going to be some empirical evidence that's going to be found out that says he existed, or the evidence that we have now, which the preponderance of it points to the fact that he never existed. And at that point, that's going to be a crossroads. People are going to say they're going to have to make a decision. They're going to have to either say, okay, all right, there's no Jesus, there's no Christianity, and the Bible is all a whole cloth spin, or Jesus exists, but he was not this, or he was this, or and and in any case, what happens is that the entire biblical narrative becomes unraveled. And I like how Ken
Mhm. Mhm.
Humphreys put this. He said that people
Who was that? Ian Humphreys, you
Ken
said?
Humphreys.
Ken
Yeah.
Humphreys. Okay. So make
Ken
sure.
Humphreys said that when you go pulling at the thread of the sweater, you find that it doesn't unravel the sweater. You find out that the sweater never existed. That
Ah,
all you had was a thread.
Yeah, that's a good
And
analogy. I like that.
and so when
yeah.
it was the all of these things taken in total, it
Mm.
wasn't it wasn't any particular thing. It was a perfect storm of things that kind of got me to the point where I said, okay, I reached the point where I said, okay, I don't believe that there's a God. There can't be, because if there was a God, and this God was really concerned about humanity, this God would do some things. He would do some things. He'd fix some
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And so that was my turning point. And again, it was a perfect storm of things. It was not any one thing. And contrary to popular belief, I'm not some angry person who the church hurt. I'm not like a lot of folks. I wasn't completely invested in the church. I wasn't in church like, churches since I was 6 or anything like that.
Mhm.
I came to church, I came to the whole Christian ideal as an adult. And it was just over time, because if you study this thing out, I mean, if you just study it out, if you're looking at it logically, if you're looking at it empirically, if you're looking for tangible, measurable, repeatable evidence, you don't find it. It just doesn't exist.
Hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. Especially Because I mean, with the Jesus question, like honestly, I haven't looked into the whole like mythicism thing too much. So I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion either way on it. I do like. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Richard C. Miller, like the way he puts it. Like he believes that like Jesus was a real person, but he believes he's like was like so mythologized, like so much myth was put on him. Is like it's almost I don't know if this was his exact wording, but at least the impression I got is he was saying like he was so mythologized he almost might as well not have been a real person because virtually everything written about him was myth anyway. But yeah, like but that's one thing I think can agree with I think even like the like atheist historicists and mythicists can agree that like yeah, Jesus doesn't exist. Like even if he was a real dude, like I think he may have been. I mean, well, he's dead now, so either way. So,
Well, let
but
me say this. I have to say something too, because there are a lot of people out here that they do believe, right?
Mhm.
And if you believe, and you believe that this is something that's personal to you, that this is you're something is something you're passionate about, you believe in it, then by all means feel free to believe. Everybody is entitled to their own beliefs. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. The problem is is that when you begin to export your beliefs as if they are truth, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
the one thing that I'm careful about how I frame my positions is that really all I have is a hypothesis.
Hmm.
I'm not going to say what I say as fact. I'm not going to say what I say as even being theory because I do have some hypotheses that might constitute or comprise a theory or a working theory, but that's because there have been people who have taken my hypotheses and they've examined them and applied some scrutiny to them and have subjected them to some test to see if they actually hold water. So if you believe, don't
Hmm.
let what I say dissuade you. What I will say to everyone that's watching is that no matter what it is, whether you believe or you don't believe, test the evidence for yourself. Because if
Yes.
you believe without evidence, uh, that's naive.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, you could believe anything
yeah,
if you're not going with evidence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
and I don't understand why Paul, like that was Paul's definition of faith, right? Is belief without evidence.
right.
And
Yeah. Evidence of like things unseen
Basis
or
of
yes,
things
faith is
hoped
the
for.
evidence of
Yeah.
things hoped for, the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think honestly, like just even that phrase right there that he used kind of gives the whole thing away, like hoped for. So it's like this is things that I want to be true.
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't see any evidence for, but I'm gonna. I mean, I guess as much as someone can choose to believe something, or maybe they just choose that they want to believe it. I don't know, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's okay if you believe that. Again,
Hmm. Yeah.
even if you don't subject it to my means tests, right? If
Hmm.
you believe, that's great. Here's the problem: is that there are people that will say, okay, that I don't know, we just have balloons or something. When
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. I think you had fireworks
yeah,
going on. Like you're making a really solid point there, dude. Keep going.
there was like
if
fireworks and
you,
then a Tinkerbell.
yeah, it's like if you believe and that's your thing, that's great. The problem is that most religious people don't stop at their own borders, if you will. They're determined to export their opinion and export it by force if necessary. And that's the whole thing is like
Hmm.
Christianity
Yeah.
is not successful because of the the quantity of its love, but by or by the quality of its love, but by the quantity of its violence.
Hmm. Yeah, that was a big help. Yeah. The whole Crusades and Roman Empire and everything. Yeah. Now, I just want to point out real quick, I am following the comments, but I was going to be posting more, but I mean, it just felt a little awkward. Like, Derrick's talking about like children in the hospital and then like Jimmy's posting this. So I see you and I appreciate you. but I just wasn't going to put it up at that specific time.
Good call.
Love you, Jimmy. But yeah, but yeah, as what you were saying, like not trying to like dissuade anyone or like take away their beliefs. That's something like I kind of maintain is I really don't think this is going back to the whole like, can you really choose what you believe and can you choose what you're convinced
I don't
of?
think so.
Like, because yeah, or at least I'm not convinced that you can. I guess if you to put it that way, but because the thing, because like people would like say to me like when I'm like being vocal about no longer believing and the reasons why, people are like, well, you're trying to. People would tell me things like, oh, you're trying to like take people's faith away. It's like I don't really have that power. If I say something and it causes someone to lose their faith, then I mean I don't want to psychoanalyze, but to me that says maybe that faith was kind of on its way out anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's really how it was for me. Because really for me, all it took was one, like I talked about in my story, going through the whole like having cancer, thinking I'm dying, and then I'm not, and now I'm like rethinking everything. So finally, like letting myself be honest, and then seeking out other voices. So I would like listen to like other points of view, like whether it be like atheist or just non-Christian or skeptical or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And I'd be like, once I actually let myself listen to it, like they didn't talk me out of it. I was just hearing these things like, oh, these things just make sense.
Yeah.
Like this is already like, it's like my mind, like for most of my life, it was like I was wanting to be Christian. So I was trying to find all the reasons I had to just keep holding on. But then once I got to the point where it's like, I'm just trying like not to hold on to anything anymore. So then just realizing, oh, there was, just that realization of I was trying to hold on to something that turned out wasn't there.
I realized
So
that things people were saying, they were familiar because they were thoughts that I had had previously that I had ignored. And
Yeah.
then when hearing someone else say the things that I had thought previously, it added value to what I had thought before. And when you hear your thoughts coming from outside your head, like it just grabs your attention. And that, for me, that made it a lot harder to ignore those problems or the questions I had about stuff.
And that's the thing, that at the end of the day, whatever you believe should be able to withstand the pressure of scrutiny, right? If it can't withstand the pressure of scrutiny, why do you believe? For example, people ask me, they say, well, what do you believe, Derrick? Because everybody believes something.
Mhm.
And my thing is that I don't believe anything. I have confidence in that which is tangible, measurable, and repeatable. So I'll say I use this example, or a couple of examples. One is that I'm sitting in a chair, and if I sit in this chair, I don't ask the chair if it can hold my 260 pounds. Not asking the chair that. I just sit in the chair and I fully expect that the engineering has been sufficiently accomplished to hold up the weight that I carry and that it won't drop me and harm me. Or when I get in my car, I don't ask the car if it's going to start, if it's going to run. I simply have confidence in the fact that this car has done this over and over again, and other cars like it have done it over and over again. So this is something that I can place confidence in. It's not a matter of belief, it's not a matter of faith, it's just a matter of having confidence in what has been tested and proven to be true. So again,
right.
so Aaron Tomlinson said this. We were having this discussion, and he was saying that in his experience, that 70% of what he prayed for, he got a positive result. Okay, that's a great number. That's a great
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
if you look at it, like Ted Williams is the greatest hitter in the history of baseball, and his batting average was 400, which meant that the 60% of the balls that were thrown at him, he whiffed at, right?
Hmm.
That's a huge
Right.
number. So 70% says, okay, I'm getting good results. But the thing that Aaron and I both had said, because I've seen, when I was preaching, we go and lay hands on people and they get healed of cancer and all this other stuff. but you'd see that one person in the back, the paraplegic in the motorized wheelchair, and nobody wants to touch this guy. Nobody wants, because you know that guy's not walking out of here today. You know. So it's like,
Mm.
you don't mess with it. It's like even the heavy hitters, the Benny Hinns of the world, they don't mess with that guy. You know,
Hmm.
they'll make sure that guy's in the back of the room. There's no way that he's going to be on the stage, because this is going to show that this whole thing doesn't work. So,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
again, it's
Yeah.
like, if when you look at something as tangible, measurable, and repeatable, okay, is it tangible? Is it something that I can perceive with my senses or with a sensor, right? Is it measurable? Is it something that I can calculate the height, the width, the depth, the breadth of this thing, how much time it takes or whatever, and then whether it's repeatable. This is the key. Can it be done over and over again? Can this be done over and over again? And if it can, that's great. Then that means we have something that we can formulate a working hypothesis around. But if you don't have repeatability, then basically what you're dealing with circumstance or freak occurrence. And that's
Mm.
not anything that you want to base any level of belief or faith or confidence in at all.
Right. Right.
That's the thing. So when I talk to people about matters of faith, I just simply say this. I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other. I'm simply asking you to put pressure on what you believe. You know,
Mm.
because if you if
Yeah.
if you put pressure on something and it withstands that pressure, great, great. But
Hmm.
if it doesn't, now you might want to reevaluate what it is that you're laying your confidence in.
What would you say if it
Exactly.
takes a lot of effort from somebody to have their faith withstand that pressure? Like it was able to withstand it, but it took significant effort on their part.
you know that's another thing too. If the effort is on you, then can you really ascribe that to God?
Yeah,
If you're putting forth the effort, that's just like people will say,
Mm.
um, like a recording star. A recording star will say, "Well, I want to praise God, for bringing me here to get this award." But it was your practice, it was your effort, it was your sacrifice, it was your uh, training, your collaboration, all of these are the things that created the perfect storm, that created this blessing for you, not
yeah,
not God. Because here's the thing: according to the Bible, right? God's not a respecter of persons. So if
Hmm.
God is not a respecter of persons, then that means every recording artist that sits down to record a tune should be blessed. If we're using the book as the paradigm,
Hmm.
this is what we should expect. Because um, you have to have, like, faith is the expectation of something, right? So you could say, well, this person didn't have faith, and I you know okay, I got to give you another story. This is another personal story, because during COVID, my dad was hospitalized, and my dad got COVID, and my
Mm.
dad has what's called an LVAD, a left ventricle assist device. It's
oh,
Yeah.
essentially an artificial heart, right?
Mm.
It helps his. It's like power steering for his heart. Okay, now I was married before. My wife died of cancer,
Mm.
1994, and
Yeah.
I stayed close to her family, particularly her mother. So her mother got sick the same time that my dad did. They went in the hospital right
Mm.
about the same time. So my dad wound up going on the ventilator, and it was not looking
Yeah.
good.
mhm.
And my mother-in-law, she got released from the hospital. And then, my dad's on the ventilator for a few weeks, and so mommy, she goes back in the hospital again. And then she gets out, and my dad's still on the ventilator. So finally, my dad gets off the ventilator, and mommy goes in the hospital and she dies. Now, here's the interesting thing is that my dad, for most of his life, was no saint. Now, it's like he found Jesus late in his life.
Like you do.
Mommy
Yeah.
wasn't a saint for most of her life. She found Jesus late in her life. Now, when they got there, they were both all in. They were all in, and the families, both my dad's family and my deceased wife's family, they all prayed. There were prayer circles, prayer vigils, fasting and praying. And I had a unique purview in this because I was able to look at the quality and the quantity and the volume and the velocity of the prayers on both sides. And when I looked at it from
Yeah.
a quantitative perspective, that basically these prayers were a wash, right? That everything was equal, but one lived and one died. And to be honest, my dad, the odds were really stacked against him. That if you looked at it by the numbers, he's the one that should have died. But so here this is, and some people say, well, your dad lived so that he could reveal the glory of God. I'm like, anytime somebody gets sick, anybody that gets sick, and they get healed, that reveals the glory of God. So basically, what you want to say is that anybody who believes, they should get healed because, at the very least, the believers, right? Because that would demonstrate the glory of God.
But if God's omnipotent, then wouldn't like everything that happens be God's glory?
Well, that's
Oh.
that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, little puppers.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So cute.
Luca,
But yeah, I mean, yeah, because that was. I had a thought, but then the puppy distracted me.
puppies
Yeah.
are pretty girls.
Oh, accurate. But yeah, what was I saying? You were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it by the numbers, my dad should have been the one that died. If you look at it by the numbers,
Yeah.
but
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, because that obviously, like in my case, like clearly, like once I went into remission, and like I had, so obviously I had all friends and family, people in my community telling me like, oh, God is great. Look what He did for you. He healed you. And like at that point, like I still was an atheist at that point, but I was probably like not really considering myself a Christian anymore. But yeah, like I've said, like I just had a hard time thinking, okay, why would God bless me while like so many other people are not getting, the result that I got,
Yeah.
specifically with people who had the same cancer that I had, but apparently God chose to heal me right at the same time that treatments for my specific kind of cancer like had just recently like taken off. And so it's like, that seems like weird timing for something miraculous that happened to line up with science.
Yeah.
Of the way that works. But yeah, that, because for me, like that was one of my big, I guess, turning points as far as my thinking was. Yeah. Another had my own perfect storm, as it were,
Yeah.
between that and a lot of other things. Yeah, but because I could go on about that and have. And I'm seeing all the comments we're getting, that I appreciate greatly. We'll probably have to go back like through these. Like, just wanted to shout out Jimmy for being on a spam patrol. I did go ahead and block that one commenter. So,
we had a
Appreciate it,
spammer.
Yeah, it was a spammer
Yeah.
out there was trying to get somebody to talk to some person about financial advice.
Oh,
yeah.
good job, bot.
Which, I mean, I do need financial advice, but not from
Not from
whoever
a
that
stranger.
Yeah, not from anybody on Facebook. What? For fuck's sake!
was. Like, see, your puppy hates spam too. Oh,
See, the animals know.
yeah.
He wants to play.
What's the puppy's name?
Luca.
Luca. Awesome.
That's a good name.
Well, nice to meet you, Luca. But yeah, I just wanted to going back to what you were saying about like the people in the
Yeah.
wheelchairs. Like so our friend Sarah here says like saw folks give nasty looks to my she later confirmed cerebral palsy cousin when I brought him to church with me back when I used to go to church. I'd rarely seen such visible hatred so blatantly on display in a public
Oh
space.
my
Like
god.
first of all, that's bullshit right there. But what you were saying, Derek, about the faith healers, they're not touching the people in the like the paraplegics or whatever. Now me and Matt, like, we have some experience like being on like prayer teams at like a church we used to go to, and in environments where we were seeing a lot of like healings and like miraculous stuff. Like I personally like prayed for I think 4 people who claimed to be healed like when I prayed for them. But I remember, and I don't know if I don't think we've actually talked about this in particular, Matt, but
Okay.
at least I know for me, it wasn't even subconscious. I think I would actually consciously think it, but not necessarily thinking through all the ramifications. But I would look at certain cases and be like, well, obviously, if we pray for that, God's not going to heal that person. I mean, that's just way too complicated of a thing. Or pray things like again in my mind, like if someone is like literally like falling off a cliff and like in like mid fall just like says, God, please save me, I'm in my mind of like, well, there's no way he's just going to hit the ground. Like we can't expect God to step in for that. Like but then started like kind of reversing the wheels, like, wait, why not?
Yeah.
Because if you think about that, was even going back to the Bible, that was specifically one of the things that Satan tempted Jesus with.
That's kind of like
And
where
he's
the confidence thing, where like, what do you have more confidence in happening? Like, well, you've never seen somebody stop falling off a cliff, but you've seen people get, maybe quickly better from cancer, or
Yeah. Or in one of my healing prayers cases, the guy was like, apparently, like God totally healed his ingrown toenail while I was praying for him.
Yeah.
It's like,
like,
yeah, which
cool.
yeah, it's like so. Yeah, God will heal all these things that can naturally just spontaneously go away, or through enough mental suggestion, you can convince yourself, well, this no longer hurts, so my back is actually fine. But like, not things like regrows amputees limbs or
It
stuff like that.
reflecting back, it
Yeah.
seemed like a lot of the cases were things where the noticeable symptom was like a chronic pain or a current pain, and if your
Mm-hmm.
body's flooded with endorphins and endocannabinoids, like that stuff will get blocked naturally, and
Mm-hmm.
social interaction and being cared
Yeah.
for by other people, eye contact, like personal attention with eye contact, like all that, like releases that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yep.
And so like that's where I'm like, okay, something was happening, so let's find out what that was instead of making assumptions, because if we can
Mm-hmm.
turn that into a science or a product of science, that's super useful. Like, let's just look
Right.
at what is happening and how do we leverage that instead of assuming it follows a certain story.
Yeah. Well, another thing too is that the power of agreement. And I think that this is something
Yes.
that is grossly underestimated when it comes to matters of faith, because even in the Bible, it talks about in the Tower of Babel, it says, "Behold, they are of one accord and one language, that they can do
Mm-hmm.
anything."
Yeah.
So let's confuse them. And I always thought to myself that one always gave me trouble, because it's like, okay, wait a minute. If you're God, this is the moment that you've been waiting for. Everybody's on one. They're on one accord. They're on one
Yeah.
mind. Okay, now
Yeah.
okay, yeah, let's go. We can get some shit done now, right?
Yeah, you can influence the whole group at once. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you say, okay,
Huh.
we're gonna confuse their language. Wait, what?
I never looked at it that way before. That's
Sounds
a
like
good
God has a
point.
small penis, honestly.
Yeah, there was some real SDE going on there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other parts of the Bible disagree, but
Oh yeah,
the
where his
small
robe
penis
filled
thing.
the temple and all that.
Yeah, his robe. Yeah. That's what I love about that's the more I learn about the more I learn about the Hebrew language, the more I learn that like almost anything is a euphemism for genitals.
Oh, for real. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, if you think about that, like, yeah, Hebrew is very uh, uh, genitalia focused. I mean, and
Mhm.
you know, like when you talk about learning Greek and you're learning Koine Greek, it's like they said that basically every word has at least four meanings, right?
Hmm.
But
Mm.
in Hebrew, there are certain words that have like six meanings, and they all have to do with genitalia.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, there is a
yeah. I mean,
hyperfixation
they
because of the
You know,
circumcision and all that.
it's like
That's
wait a minute, God created everything perfect. Well, wait a second, we got to strike this foreskin.
yeah. It's like
yeah. I really don't
God's
understand where that came from. Except maybe like we had to look different than the animals. I don't know. I can't think of like where the
maybe.
logic came from, like why that was in anybody's head as a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, but if that's the case, then God should have just created us without it anyway.
yeah.
If we're supposed to be
And
different
and
from
then
the animals.
that brings up a
Yeah.
really interesting question because if you know circumcision is such a thing, you know, who circumcised God?
Ooh.
You know,
Maybe he's the only one who's allowed
Mhm.
to be uncircumcised.
well,
I mean, part of God's nature is special pleading. So
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, like Jamie said, just fucking weird. But Keith likes it, so it's
I don't know.
I don't know what exactly he was replying to, but I'm just going to assume it was the foreskin.
Well,
So
supposedly
hey,
one of the
I'm not.
benefits is, and I don't know, I've never met Keith or talked to him, so this is be weird. But one of the benefits supposedly of being circumcised is that if you are prone to STDs, it
Yep,
is easier to clean up.
yep.
Like it's easier to stay healthy. So maybe the Israelites maybe they were getting down and dirty. I mean, they did need to have rules against fraternizing with the livestock. So
Ooh,
Yeah,
I don't
you
yeah,
know.
know
got to keep yourself clean from
the
a lot of
laws
stuff
against
there. So.
bestiality. Yeah,
hmm
Yeah, you don't have rules unless somebody's
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah, but yeah, good looking out there, Jimmy. Like, you're thinking of God. We appreciate that.
yeah.
But
Got to clean up the
also,
toilet
Sarah
seat.
makes a good point. That, yeah, God being male, yes, that is still weird. Now, obviously, in context, no, it totally makes sense because there's a bunch of dudes that wrote the Bible and they were. But yeah, if this is, yeah,
You know,
it's
actually, like from a
the more.
circumcision standpoint, it makes more sense that God's a female. You know,
Ooh,
because you know God looks at this as ew.
yeah, cause, and honestly, when you think about it, like I cannot believe that a male came up with the idea for circumcision. Like that just doesn't track.
No. Well, it was supposedly God, but God is male. So yeah. I mean,
I'm
in
saying
that,
assuming God is male. I mean, but
yeah.
if you say okay, God is female, then this kind of starts making sense a little bit. You know, because it's
Well,
you
I
know
think they did
Well,
you
combine a
know
lot
I'm
of
just
the Asherah stuff with the El stories. So I think there was some Asherah feminism of God, the God
but
character.
Jimmy's on a tear tonight. Oh my God,
yeah. uh, appreciate you, buddy.
we love you, Jimmy.
That does make more sense if
Yeah.
God like created a world,
Yeah.
right? It like birthed the world into existence.
Yeah, I mean, and I just want to give a shout out to Keith for introducing the phrase "cock rot" to my consciousness. Thank you / fuck you. I love you. Thanks for participating.
He said
Oh, they made
seafood.
you delete it. It's like, well, it lives on in the live stream video, so
Oh, really?
um,
Facebook made him delete it? Delete it?
Oh wow.
I guess. But Emily said like Christians get real sensitive about the pronouns when we start talking about God. That's like so, and this is
Pronouns
a
in
whole other
general, for the
tangent. But
most
Yeah,
part.
let's go.
when it comes to like
This is a good
when it
rabbit
comes
hole
to
to go
the
down. This is a great rabbit
yeah
hole.
yeah yeah when it comes to the whole transgender thing, people say like, well, people like if you're not born with that particular anatomy, you shouldn't identify as that gender. It's like, well, God identifies as male, but you keep telling me he doesn't have a male body, so maybe God is trans. I don't know, but
It's supposed to
Well,
be
you
all
just
know,
saying.
things to all people.
it said that Eve was created from Adam's rib, and it was the womb. So woman, womb man. was taken from the man, right? So that means that the man
Yeah.
originally had a womb. So that means that Adam swung both
Ooh.
ways until the surgery, until the cloning. So
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's actually a legit point that I heard. Like the word, I think it might actually be the word Adam. Like, but in the original Hebrew, it like what the word actually means. It has, speaking of words having like multiple meanings, it actually has connotations of just being like fully human, like in all
right,
aspects, including both genders,
yeah,
like male and
yeah,
female. So yeah,
that's
so
literally what
Adam
it
was a
means.
hermaphrodite, or yeah, something like that.
In really ancient cultures, I think, including the Hopi Indians in the American Southwest, they're if somebody was intersexed or at that
Hermaphrodite.
time would have been a trans person, they were kind of seen as like on a higher level
Yeah,
than just male female.
yeah. That was the same in Mesopotamia, in like the Babylonia cultures and things like that.
Yeah.
Hermaphrodites were highly regarded because they had
Mm-hmm.
both genders.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
twin
Is that what it says?
spirits.
Twin spirits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another Native American thing too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But speaking of Jimmy, he's here with some good advice for everybody. Again, because we're all about doing the things with the stuff for the people. So Jimmy's letting us know here's the things you need to do the stuff with the people. So
Yeah, Jimmy's like get water based lube and it's all good.
appreciate you, brother. Oh man. So I don't know where to go from there, but
No, that's how that goes.
Yeah, that was actually a good one because and here's the thing that to be fair, that if you are really about deconstructing scripture, let's just talk about that for a minute. Deconstructing scripture,
yep,
because I think
I
that
like it.
before you begin to deconstruct your faith, you have to deconstruct what is the source of your faith. And the source of the faith for most people is the
Yeah.
scriptures, right? So
Mhm.
what you have to, and this is the thing that was always a challenge for me. I said that in order to really understand, like, okay, in Romans it says those who call on the name of the Lord will be saved, right? So that
Mhm.
that word saved is sozo in the Greek,
Yeah.
sozo.
Mhm.
But when you look at the meanings of sozo, it's salvation from sin or negative influence, um, uh, deliverance from oppression, bodily healing, and material blessing. Those are the four
Mm.
common definitions of sozo. So now when you go back and look at that in context, and you look at that passage of Romans in context, and you apply the hermeneutic 2020 rule, 20 scriptures or 20 verses before, 20 verses after, and you look at it in context, that it has nothing to do with salvation. It has everything to do with material blessing, prosperity.
Mm.
That's what
Mm.
that particular verse alludes to. So it has nothing to do with calling on the name of the Lord and you're just going to be magically saved,
Yeah.
and get your,
Mhm.
your golden ticket punched to heaven. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that there is
Huh.
some material blessing for you for calling upon the name of the Lord. Now, that being said, how many people? Well, let's just say this: does Elon Musk call on the name of the Lord? I mean, we don't
He
know.
does, but he
We
calls
don't
him
know
Elon.
honestly, but we can kind of speculate, based
Yeah.
on evidence that's presented to us. Does Jeff Bezos call on the name of the Lord?
No.
Does Mark Zuckerberg call on the name of the Lord? Does Bill Gates?
Mm.
Does Larry Ellison? Does you know? Insert your favorite billionaire here, right? So so that
Yeah.
means now we're talking about material blessing. And again, if you wanted to make a case for whether or not God is really involved in your life, okay, what better way for God to say to everybody, hey, listen, if you're down with me, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get healed, you're going to get delivered, you're going to get blessed, You know,
That'd be
you
some good stuff. Yeah.
you have it going on, right? And
Hmm.
think about this. Think about this. If you're trying to make a case for belief, what better case than you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and all of a sudden, all of your little first world problems go away, and suddenly things get
Yeah.
better. But they don't. And that to me is a problem because people say, well, if you just believe, you just have enough faith, right? If you have faith the size of a mustard seed, okay. I've seen people who had that kind of faith, and they were broke, man. I mean, they didn't have shit, and I'm like, okay, you know, but you have somebody that's just kind of coasting through, and
Yep.
they're prospering. So it's like I just don't get it. I don't get it. Uh,
Hmm.
but again, what I'm saying about this is that when most people who read the Bible don't really understand how to read it, right? Because in order for it to make sense, you have to understand first the culture to whom it was written, the time that it was written, the historicity of it. Then you have to understand the geography, and you have to understand anthropology. And if you don't take all of these things into consideration, basically you're kind of reading in a vacuum, and you're applying this
Yeah.
as a literal standard to a time that it doesn't apply to. And
Hmm.
and again, my challenge to everyone that's watching is, I'm not telling you to abandon your belief. Not at all. If you believe this and you have sincere, logical reasons for believing, good on you, mate. But
Yeah.
but if you don't, then you really need to dig deeper and find out. Okay, either find out, does this really apply to me, and if it does, why isn't it working? See, that's
Yeah.
that's another thing too. Like, I'm an engineer
Hmm.
by profession, and so the big thing for me is root cause analysis. If something doesn't work, I need to not only understand why it doesn't work, but I need to understand the root cause so that I can either mitigate or eliminate that point of failure
Hmm.
so that it doesn't happen again. And the thing is that people don't apply that same scrutiny to what they believe in. But if
Yeah.
you did, if you go back and you look at it and say, okay, if I'm praying and I don't get results, and maybe I'm praying wrong. Okay, so what's now? I need to find out what's the right way to pray. You know, and people say, oh well, don't pray for your will. Pray that God's will is done. Okay, what is God's will? Because Matt, I don't know about you. I know Tommy has kids. You have kids,
Yeah. Yeah. I have two.
so watch this. If you tell your kids, I need the trash taken out. I need the
Well, that
trash
won't
taken out
happen.
on Sunday night because Monday morning trash is going to get picked up, right? But you don't tell them how to get the trash together. You don't tell them where to put it. You don't tell them where to put the cans or anything like that. So the trash man comes on Monday and passes your house by because the cans were never put out. Now, whose fault is that the trash didn't get picked up?
Yeah.
It's your fault. You, the parent,
Hmm.
because you didn't give the full instruction. If you give the full instruction, and you make them understand why they're putting the trash out, well, this is going to keep the house from smelling. It's going to foster good hygiene. It keeps the neighborhood from looking bad. Blah blah blah. Right? Okay. So now your kids understand that the trash needs to go out and why it needs to go out and when it needs to go out. So you give us some very specific instructions on why the trash doesn't, why the trash needs to go out. Now, here's the thing. If you've given that instruction clearly across the board, all of your kids got it. You've given it to all of them the same way, and the trash doesn't go out now, whose fault is it? It's theirs because they had a
Hmm.
clear instruction on how to do this and why it needs to be done.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so the Bible is so clear and concise that there are only 42,000 interpretations of it.
Only.
So,
Yeah.
Not to mention different books and different versions of it, and
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's 42,000 known sects and denominations of Christianity.
That must be super clear then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think half of them are just different kinds of Baptist.
Yeah, and you know, this is a funny thing too, because there is a very well known black denomination, that there is a splinter group of that has a prohibition on open toed shoes. Why? Because some bishop had a toe fetish.
Oh, and it's the toes' fault, not his.
It's the toes fault.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but not even the toes he was fetishizing. Now it's just every toe's fault. Like,
You know, it's like
And he's like, "How sick you think I am?"
this guy can't handle toe cleavage. You know, toe cleavage messes him up. You know, so he can't preach the word of God because he's distracted. He's looking at all these beautiful toes, right? What I'm getting at is that the instruction is,
personally, I'm distracted by a different kind of toe altogether. But that's
Well,
sorry.
oh yeah, I know which toe you're talking about, Tommy. Yeah, you're Randy,
continue.
man, you.
But yeah, I mean, like what you were saying with because I grew up very like fundamentalist Baptist, like, you know, scriptural inerrancy, and they were like, the Bible is clear, like if you have like a PhD in Greek and Hebrew and like seminary degrees out your ass, and
It isn't even clear to them.
no.
yeah, because so then like going through my deconstruction, I'd like come across all these different interpretations of all these verses, and at first I was like, oh, this is great, because again, it's like, oh, I don't have to believe that bullshit anymore. Now I got like this like new, like nicer ways of looking at scripture. But then it kind of hit me as like, so I actually started asking people who were taking these, you know, definitely much nicer views of the Bible, saying, well, it's all like centered on Christ, and like anything in the Bible that doesn't look like Jesus isn't completely accurate.
Yeah.
And I would say, okay, well, how do you know? Like, how do you know that the Bible is supposed to be like about, maybe how do you know that Jesus didn't get it wrong and God really is that like genocidal asshole from like the Old Testament? And so I would ask this to so many people, and the only way to sum up all the answers I got back is like, well, this is what I choose to believe. I'm like, okay, but how do you know? so that's why I thought, like, okay, if Christianity doesn't have the Bible to base itself on, then what does it have? Like, you could say, well, I just heard from the Spirit. Okay, well, how do you know that wasn't just thoughts from inside your own head, or something that was like already inside you? I still maintain, like, if you're coming to the Bible and you're only seeing like the loving parts, like if you're rejecting all the like the violent and like judgmental and hell or whatever, but if you're coming at it and you're only seeing like, you know, the love of Jesus and grace and forgiveness, and I maintain like that's something that was already in you, and you're bringing it to the Bible. Now, congratulations, that was already in you, and I'm glad you're reading the Bible that way. Yeah. But when it comes to like all the different ways to interpret it, like if this is going to be the basis for basically the faith, the religion, whatever you want to call it, like, couldn't God make it more clear?
Yeah.
Like, because like people would say, like when you talk about like all the different like translation errors or copying errors or whatever that happened through like the different like copyings of the manuscripts and like different translations, like I've actually heard people like James White, if you're familiar with him. Yep. I remember he was in a debate with Bart Ehrman, and Bart Ehrman was bringing up all the different like translation errors and copying errors, and like it's like through all the centuries, and James White, like this like Calvinist fundamentalist Christian, like actually said basically, well, what do you expect? Like, I mean, these are like humans writing it all down. And like, I don't remember if Ehrman responded to this, but I remember when I was watching it, like, what I expect is God is all powerful and can keep track of how people are writing his book.
Yeah.
Yeah, if God's word is unchanging, then why does it change?
Imagine this is like, you know, you got Ezekiel that's writing all of this down, and God looks over his shoulder and says, whoa, Zeke, That's fucked up, man. Don't write that. You know,
Like people
That
are
would
gonna
have been
read
nice
that.
every now and then.
God looks down and says, "Ooh, that's going to really confuse them." You know,
Yeah, maybe some of that stuff, maybe God like literally was just trying to have fun. Like, oh yeah, I'll let that go. See what that
I'll let
Yeah.
that go for a couple
But
thousand years.
let's see where that one goes.
yeah, because one example I like to think about is like I don't remember where exactly it is in like the Pauline epistles, but basically where Paul says like he's talking about like women having to be silent and not braid their hair and like all that kind of stuff. And so
You just said
because like Christian, what's
You
that?
said having to be silent. I
Yeah,
was like,
let
are
the
you?
women keep
Having to be-
silent.
I was like,
That was the original. That was in the original Greek.
Yeah,
That was
you're
the
from Ohio.
stricter translation. I am very from Ohio. So,
So,
oh yeah. So
hang on.
when it comes to like,
That's First Corinthians chapter 14, and
gotcha.
and you have to
Thank you.
in First Corinthians, the whole book of First Corinthians has to do with people who were bringing pagan worship into the church.
Oh yeah.
And basically
Yeah.
the big thing was Diana worship and temple prostitution.
Yes.
And so
Yeah. Exactly.
women had a big role in that. They were the priestesses and they controlled the whole thing. So what Paul was saying is like, don't let this shit that was in your pagan worship pollute your Christian worship. It had nothing to do with just telling women to keep silent. He's like, okay,
Right.
these women that were priestesses, now they're coming in here and trying to exert the same authority that they had over here. And
Right.
and that was the problem. Paul was trying to correct a problem that was in the church of Corinth. And again, this is one of these
Exactly.
things that if you don't study it out, you don't know.
Yeah. It still feels like a bit
Exactly.
of
And
overcorrection, but like I see where he's going with
yeah.
it for sure.
Yeah. So that's actually like my point is because like Christians will say, well, you have to study the context. It's like, well, but the thing is,
Just a,
not everyone.
just a thing from certain.
Not everyone has.
where he's like, you first, dipshit.
You know what I say when people say, "Well, you haven't studied the context." I say, "Okay, come let us reason together. Here's the context.
Yeah.
Here's the context.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at this in context." And then they'll say, "Oh no, you're taking it all out of context."
Like no, I'm literally providing you.
Dude.
So because another part of that is like to me what seemed like a very problematic verse is where he says like but the phrasing was something like but women will be saved in childbirth.
Yeah.
Now I was growing up thinking that was basically women's like sort of penance for like Eve being the first sinner, so like childbirth. But I found out later what that actually means is speaking of the cult of Diana or whoever it was. The reason women did the things like braiding their hair and wearing all the jewelry and all their stuff is because that was supposed to be like a protection for when they were pregnant to protect them in childbirth. So what Paul was really saying is don't worry about that. You will be safe in childbirth.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. That's not in the Bible. Like, so people say, oh, you got to like study the historical context and look into like all the different things. Like most people don't have access. Most people don't have access to that. Most people just have the Bible.
Right.
So to me, that again made it like, why is God putting something in his word and then putting it out to the masses where they need that context, but not providing that context, then leading to all the bullshit that's been done to women in the name of the church for millennia.
Right.
Like God apparently just let that happen.
Memos. Those are internal church memos.
Which that's also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, essentially, First Corinthians is actually Second Corinthians because there was another letter he had that was like lost. But yeah, that's a whole other thing. But I concur with Sarah Black. Indeed. So yeah, that was. Yeah, so when it came to like just all the things that Christianity is supposed to be based on, I'm like, well, it can't really be based on the Bible because like like one, it's not even
there's
a book.
There's a one of the apocryphal books, the Gospel of Judas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Gospel of Judas, there's a situation where the disciples are all sitting around praying, and it says Jesus laughed at them. He's like, who are you praying to? Because this L that you're praying to is not the creator of all things. This guy's an imposter, and you're praying to this imposter, right?
Mhm.
When you look at a lot of the apocryphal works, there's some hidden understanding there,
Yeah.
and one of the things that was rebuked, um, and basically squeezed out at the Council of Nicaea were the books that dealt with Gnosticism, because the thing that the Council of Nicaea wanted to do is they wanted to establish the divinity of Jesus and
Mhm.
salvation by faith and not works. So
Right.
that's the thing. But the Gnostics believed that it wasn't faith that saved you; it was understanding. That's
Yep.
why gnosis,
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah.
It was
Knowledge. Exactly.
knowledge that saved you. And so the question then is, and so watch this. Your average M1A1 Christian theologian, pastor, they're going to say,
Hmm.
well, you have to know this, right? They say, well, it's by faith that you're saved and not of works that any man can boast, but you got to know, right? So wait a minute, guys.
Hmm.
Which one is it? Is it faith or is it knowing? Which one is it that's going to save me? Because see, and I need a clear answer on this, because whether or not my ass roast for eternity hinges on this, right?
Right.
So
Yeah. Because that's
I need a
yeah.
clear answer. Is it knowing that's going to save me, or is it faith that's going to save me? And you can't say, you
Mhm.
can't make it situational, because now you put it on a sliding scale instead of a
Yeah.
switch where it's binary. It's either on or it's off. And what you're doing is you're serving me up a rheostat, right? Which I have a sliding scale now.
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
one of the verses
Switching
that
the bourbon.
or one of the concepts that I still kind of like from the Bible, at least how it puts it, is the fruit of the spirit stuff.
Yeah,
I think the fruits. There's two that are missing for like good mental and emotional health, and one is self awareness and perseverance, or no, not perseverance, resiliency.
yeah.
And those are the two that I
Oh
think
yeah.
the church encourages people to outsource to the church. Uh, uh, Shit, what was I
Well, in
saying?
yourself lies no good thing, Matt.
Oh, yeah,
Hmm.
So you can't you
Your
can't
heart
you
is
can't
deceitful.
trust yourself, because your heart is wicked in all ways, and the tongue is an element of fire. It's like you
but
what
I'm
you
made in the
think.
image of God. So now what? Like, what does that mean? Like, is God the same way? Does he
Yeah.
have problems too? Like, what the heck?
Yeah. Like who made my heart? Who made like? That's what I loved. Like when people like to like, well, who made us
Tommy
so
says something.
fragile?
Yeah, your audio cut out for a second.
Yeah, you're frozen too, man.
Yeah.
Are we
You
here?
look like, there you
I think
go.
we lost
There
it
you go.
there.
Yeah, you look like
All
you
right.
took a real stiff drink there, man,
Here we
and,
go.
and it
Well,
froze
I
you up.
did. Yeah. Did you hear what I said, or where'd you lose me?
The tail end of it. There was a chunk missing in the middle.
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying is like people will say, well, don't blame God for like the brokenness of humanity and the thing to do. Is like my response to that is like, well, who made us so fragile?
Right.
Like,
Who hired the
yeah.
middle management though for that to happen? Like,
Hmm.
so what I was
Yeah.
saying before, where I didn't get to it about the fruit of the spirit, was that's one thing that
Yeah.
I think is useful with Christians is to like what kind of fruit is it producing in somebody's life? Like, is your faith producing like the patience and love, as was it First Corinthians says? Then, and if it isn't, reevaluate it, because then it's not producing what you believe is a good thing, and those things are good things in general too.
Yeah.
So
I
like
mean,
whatever somebody's belief is, I think if it's producing things that lead to good mental and emotional health, then like I kind of don't
Yeah.
care what somebody
so
believes.
this is
Right.
where this shows up in Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 and 23, and it says, but the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such thing as there is no law. Let's look at this. I'm going to take one each of these, and I'm going to unpack it just briefly, and then I'll kick it back to you guys. But like
Hmm.
love is empathy and compassion. right? That's the elemental
Hmm.
components of love. Joy is unconditional satisfaction, right? In
Hmm.
other words, happiness is conditional. Happiness is I got money in the bank, my wife loves me, I'm getting laid, I'm getting high. These are things that create happiness, but is this mental state that's in spite of circumstances. Peace is just simply peace of mind, not being unsettled. Forbearance and this is funny. Forgiveness is satisfying a debt immediately. Forbearance is kicking it down the road, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
kindness, just treating people well. That's being kind. Goodness, not being a liar, not bearing false witness, not harming anyone. That's the quality of goodness. Faithfulness is not your fullness of faith. It's your fidelity to others,
Mm.
your
Yeah.
fidelity to others.
Hmm.
Gentleness, it means, okay, I'm doing things in such a way that it brings comfort, that it brings peace to others. And then finally, self-control, that I got my own shit together. Okay, so these are the fruit of the spirit. And here's the interesting thing. Like, some people say, well, Derek, doesn't the Bible teach good things? Yeah, it does, but a broken clock is right twice a day too.
Hmm.
Blind squirrels and nuts and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and 'cause that's and like speaking of the fruits of the spirit, that's something I've actually noticed and like pointed out. Like since leaving the faith, like
Oh yeah.
I still have every single one of those in my life, if
Yeah.
not more so, or to a deeper
More
level, or
abundantly.
yeah, or in a
Yep.
more honest way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because like before, like as a Christian, I would like loving other people was an important thing to me, but it was like because it was a duty. Like it was something I had to do. Now, obviously, there were people that I genuinely loved and cared for, but when it comes to just loving like whoever, it's like now it's like I only love people because I still actually believe that's a good thing to do, and it's so much more genuine and honest now than it was before, and that
Yeah.
includes like loving myself. Like I love myself like way more than I ever did when I was a
Hmm.
believer. Which I mean, that's yeah, yeah. Or as like Keith says here, like fruit of the spirit, not fruit of the Bible or fruit of the church, fruit of the
Yep.
spirit. Yeah,
And here's
like
here's the thing, right? People will say, well, that's the fruit of the Holy Spirit, right? No. You know what? The the fruit of the Spirit is the fruit of the fully formed human spirit.
Yes.
mm,
It
Actually,
it
yeah.
has nothing to do with God, because you can have these characteristics without being religious at all. You could be atheist than a motherfucker and still manifest all of these things.
Yeah.
So
mhm,
if
Often
yeah,
if
better.
you're an atheist or a
yeah,
Buddhist or a Hindu and you
yeah.
manifest these, are you saying that it's the Holy Spirit of God? No, it's the fully formed human spirit.
Yeah, that's actually like one of the
Mhm,
idea
mhm.
that Jesus was fully human. Um, that concept and like latching onto that is something that I really hadn't fully processed before. That's something that kind of turbocharged my deconstruction. Was like in church, there was always a big focus on the full divinity of Jesus, but kind of just like, oh, but he was also human. Like, but he
Yeah,
was fully both, and so Jesus is or at the time I'm thinking Jesus is the picture of like the fully human person, and just that idea led me into like thinking about like, okay, so what is the fully human me? Like, what's the complete version of me? And, like, do I have it right now?
Yeah, and so
yeah.
here's the fully formed you is the one who understands self. and
Mm,
and this is
Yeah.
a big one, because in Christianity, like other religions, they teach you that self is bad, that you have to empty yourself of self in order to be full. But I think that is really disingenuous,
Yeah.
because in order for you to be fully formed, you have to have a clear sense of self, and it has
Oh
to
yeah.
be a clearly articulated version of self. In other words, that first I understand why. I understand my why. I understand what
Hmm.
gets me out of bed. I understand what motivates me. Like I can tell anybody in an elevator pitch what my why is. My why is to share what I know, what life experiences have provided fruit in my life that others may prosper from it. This
Hmm.
is my why. This is why I get out of bed every day. Is the ability to share that, to have at least one opportunity to share that with others. Now, so now I understand my why. So now I can understand the who. Who am I addressing? Who am I reaching out to? I can understand the what. What am I telling them? What am I producing? I can say the when. What is the timing of this? All of these things, the where, the place of these things, the locus. I can talk about all of these things, but if I don't understand me where I am, I can't
Hmm.
tell anybody a goddamn thing.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like because like the analogy that just came to my head is like if you're going like
Excuse
if
me.
you're visiting a city, like you're traveling somewhere and you want like a tour of the city, like who do you want as a tour guide? Like
Right.
someone who doesn't know where the hell they are, or someone who fully knows where they are?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly. So
that's
so
a,
Mhm.
think about this, right? If you are fully formed in your spirit, you are now an effective tour guide to you, right? And why is this important? Because you can teach people how to deal with you, right? You can
Mhm.
teach them what how to respect you, how to understand you, how to talk to you, how to react to you, all of these things. Now, think about this, that if we're all fully formed, right, and we're able to project this to others, we're able to be effective tour guides of ourselves to others. What does this mean? Now I can tell you exactly how I need to be taught, how I need to be treated, how I need to be loved, how I need to be fed, blah, 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 right? So, Tommy, you made a really
Mhm.
good point. Who do you want as a tour guide? Do you want the tour guide that knows all of the intricacies and the nuances, all the hidden spots on the tour, or do you want the guy that's just like he's going to take you down Main Street and that's it?
Mhm.
Dude, that was a powerful, powerful analogy.
yeah. There's
I'll credit
that.
the bourbon.
So Tommy, when you said that, it reminded me of the UFO UAP stuff I've watched, and the guys that seem to know stuff that they can't share. They they have kind of a peace with life. It's like they've
Hmm.
seen how much they don't know about reality. Like they've been faced with that,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and they're like, oh no, I don't know, I don't know any of that stuff. But they're like, I know who I am, and they're like, that's all I know. I don't know if I exist really, but
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
but I know who I am, and there's something about people who like just clearly accept um, how little they know, how much they don't know, but know themselves. Like those are the people that I really enjoy being around, uh,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
whose advice I'll take because I know it's not coming from any kind of like
Right.
ego at all.
Mhm. Yeah, because that's something like I've found out. Like this is like I guess a very specific example, but just like in my experience of you know leaving faith and being very public about it. So speaking of being able to like not only know yourself but also know other people who know themselves and like
Mhm.
listening to other people tell you about them. So yeah, it's like once you fully know yourself, you realize how important it is for other people to know themselves and for you to truly know themselves. So that's something I've realized as I've been more public about my like leaving faith and like all the reasons, like just realizing how much religion robs that of
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
Because when
Yeah.
people approach me like I've had people like that I haven't spoken to in like a decade or so, like coming to me thinking they know how to bring me back. But it's like you have no idea what you're talking about. But religion has taught them that I have the answers for this guy. No matter what he's going through, no matter what his issue is, like
See,
I know what to tell him.
let me tell you something. This will help you because this is what has helped me, right? I don't fuck with people who don't know themselves. If
Mm-hmm.
I realize that you don't know who you are, there's one or two ways I'm going to deal with you. One is that if I have no skin in your game, I'm just going to kick you to the curb and keep it moving. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you're somebody in my life that you're a friend, you're a family member, something like that, okay, I'm gonna put you on a shelf and in a
Mm-hmm.
cubby until I understand how to deal with you or until you've learned who you are,
Hmm.
right?
Uh-huh.
I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
disregard you, but I'm not gonna fuck with you on a regular basis, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, listen, if you deal with people who don't know who the fuck they are, what you're going to do is it becomes an exercise in frustration to you.
Yeah, I hear
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, because that's basically the way I've dealt with like, cause like there's people reaching out to me, like I said, they were like friends of mine, but like from like years ago, whether it's like high school or whatever, but like haven't seen in forever. But then now all of a sudden, they're reaching out to me, you know. But like, because I had this one guy reach out to me, and again, like, not going to mention names because like I know where this was coming from. I know this
That's okay, Dina.
like this is like one of the nicest guys I've ever known, but like he reaches out to me saying like first of all just like asking about well what bad theology did you hear or like
Uh,
here let me recommend a book to you and he recommended a book by Dr. Michael Brown. Are you familiar with him?
Oh fuck! Oh
Yeah,
god!
I'm like I'm like okay dude,
Dear
you're
sweet
talking
baby
about
Jesus.
if you want to talk to me about like correcting any harmful theology, that's exactly the
Okay,
harmful
okay. So
theology.
stop. Let's stop there for just. Let's stop. Define harmful theology?
right.
I mean, let's baseline this, right?
Okay.
Because if you're saying that, what harmful theology have you been exposed to? Okay, let's get a good working definition of what is harmful theology, right? Because let me give you an example. Michael Brown, right? Michael Brown is probably the most harmful kind of theology that you could put your face on, right?
Yeah.
But
So for
so
people
so,
who are
so
unfamiliar with Michael Brown, he's like very fundamentalist. I think he's actually a messianic he's messianic
yeah,
Jew. I'm
yeah,
not sure on that, yeah. But yeah, very fundamentalist, very like, hell
Calvinist too,
and
right?
yeah.
like
So
yeah,
let's say
Calvin, yeah.
let's say this. Okay, so let's go to the other end of the spectrum and let's go to Rob Bell.
That
Okay.
is the other
I
end.
was I was a, I was a fan of him for a good 5 minutes. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, right? I like Rob. I like
Mhm.
Rob, but the thing about Rob is that, in my opinion, Rob hasn't gone far enough. He hasn't deconstructed fully. He's deconstructed to a point where he's able to milk it and develop a following, but he hasn't flirted with atheism or agnosticism or anything like that. He's still on the Jesus trip, and so
Yeah.
his deconstruction hasn't been complete. So my thing is that, okay, bad theology. Michael Brown to me, that would be the epitome of bad theology. Or what's his name, James McDonald,
Oh yeah.
or John MacArthur, or
John
somebody like
MacArthur,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
these are the
Yeah.
people that I would say, if I'm going to define what is bad theology, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Now, if I say, better theology would be Rob Bell, would be Pete Enns, would be, you
Yeah.
know, uh,
Definitely better.
Richard
Yeah.
Rohr. That's better
Oh yeah.
theology. But then if I'm going to good theology, I'm going to people like Neil Donald Walsh. I'm going to Eckhart Tolle. I'm going to people like that because I'm
Eckhart
going to
Tolle.
people whose theology is not constrained by some religious paradigm,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
the thing is, because I get that too, Tommy. They
Hmm.
they talk about, well, what bad theology, or show me on the dial where theology hurt you, right? And I'm like, you know, theology, okay, theology by its definition. Oh my God, this dog has got my dreadlocks. This
They're
is
so enticing. Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I'm
So
jealous. Yeah.
go away, wolf dog. So basically, my thing is that all this is my contention. All theology is bad theology, and this is why. Okay, see, here you go, fucking with a bigger dog. You're not that big. So we have a house full of dogs here. We have a teacup Yorkie. We have this
Ooh.
Siberian Husky, and then we have I don't know, what is he called? Like he's part what's that, babe? A Rotador. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay, that's a big dog.
yeah. And so all of these small dogs like fucking with this big dog, and I'm like, you're fucking with him, and this guy is gonna make you a two-piece snack, two bites and you're done. Let it go.
Oh, dogs.
Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, I got distracted, but this is my point. All theology is bad theology. There's no such thing as good theology, and here's how I'm going to prove it. Right? Here's how I'm going to prove it. Like, let's look at ology. Ology means the study of something, right? In the Greek, that's just the study of something, right? So you have biology, you have physiology, you have geography or geology, and you have all of these different ologies. So if you look at all of these different ologies and you look at biology, what advances in biology have there been? Many, right? We understand things about biology that we couldn't even comprehend in the first century. Things about geology, things about philosophy, things about mathematics, the natural sciences, physics, but the things that we just engineering. Things that we
Yeah.
know now that if we were to show this to someone of the first century, we would be considered gods in their mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
Oncology.
but if you look at theology, right, and a first century theologian will be perfectly at home today because nothing has changed. What has theology done to meaningfully advance humanity? Not a goddamn thing. But
Yeah. I mean,
every other science, every other scientific or intellectual discipline has done multitudes to advance humanity, but theology has done
yeah.
nothing. So by that standard, so like we can say, okay, what is good biology and what is bad biology? Okay, good biology has resulted in the explication of the genome. Bad biology is eugenics and phrenology, right? You can easily
Yeah.
distinguish the two. But what is good theology and what is bad theology? Because no theology has advanced humanity in any meaningful way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
And because
I
I've,
don't know
I've
if
heard
that
you
was
say
even.
it.
I was gonna say that I don't even know if that was. I think people latched onto theology like it was a thing to progress humanity, but its function was really to preserve the past. Like
Right.
it was not about
Yeah.
moving
It's more
forward.
regressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've heard you say that before, Derek. And usually, like the way my mind works, like no matter what the thing is, but if you give me like an absolute statement, like has never or will never or has not, or like my brain automatically tries to find an exception. That's just how
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
I have yet to find an exception
There
to
isn't
that
an
statement.
exception.
Yeah.
And that's good because see that says that your thinker is engaged, right?
Hmm.
And everybody, for anybody that their thinker is engaged, that's great. But the point is that somebody says to you, well, Tommy, you just been exposed to some bad theology. Okay, great. Show me some good theology.
And I'll tell you why it's bad.
And Michael
What's that?
Brown doesn't count.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I'll tell you why it's bad.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like because I remember like from my days as an evangelical, and even now, like I've still see this like floated about as people saying, "Oh, here's a good way to like start evangelism." Is that whole idea of, well, tell me about the God you don't believe in, because I probably don't believe in him either. Because like there's that assumption
Yeah.
of, well, you're just believing bad things. Like, so, well, what God don't I believe in? All of them. So
Yeah.
try me.
So you
But
want to know what
yeah,
my definition of theology is? You want to know
what's
what it
that?
is? My working definition of theology?
Hit me.
My working definition of theology is a glass-studded dildo.
fancy.
Now, tell me where. Tell me the difference between a good glass-studded dildo and a bad one.
I don't know.
How smooth it is.
Well, I don't know. The glass-studded one only fucks you once, probably.
No, I mean, think about this. If you take a dildo and you stud it with broken glass,
Yeah.
there's no good coming out of this. I don't care how you slice it or dice it.
Yeah, there's nothing coming out of that. At least I hope not.
I mean, this is going to be a painful, destructive experience for everyone involved.
Like now, if you're into that, I don't shame, but
No,
you know,
no. Listen,
not my thing.
No, listen. I'm okay with a kink. I'm okay with a fetish. I'm okay with that. But a glass studded dildo. I mean, just I want everybody in the audience tonight to just picture that.
Please do. Yes.
Picture that. I want you to picture that and tell me what. So let's take two glass studded dildos and juxtapose them, right? For the sake of argument, and let's say which one is the good glass studded dildo and which one is the bad one. In other words, which one is going to provide some benefit to you when it's inserted into you and which one isn't. And the answer is neither one is going to be beneficial to you. When it's inserted into you, it's going to tear some shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you put it that
that's
way,
a lesser of two evils situation for sure.
There is no lesser of two evils. It's like evil or evil.
Well, right, but are they identical? If one's a little different, then I might need to think through it.
Okay, I mean, okay, so that's like, like
I agree.
it's the difference between death and death by bunga bunga. Which one is worse?
I just appreciate, like, I just want to shout out Keith. Like, he's like staying up watching us. I think he's like looking after a homeless shelter. So I'm glad we're keeping you going, dude.
Yeah, I'm thinking that anybody watching this has got to be like, holy fuck, what's going on here?
See, now this is the thing, because I appreciate it. So back when me and Matt were doing the podcast, obviously, pre-recorded, then we released it. Like I had like a lot of fun, like coming up with the titles and the description, because then like we could play games, like things that we mentioned. Like that's the problem with doing live, because I got to come up with the description before we go, and like usually what I put in there is like, well, this is what we started with, but if only I had known to put glass dildos in the description.
Yeah, if you put glass dildos in this, you would have had thousands of people responding, right? Everybody would tune into this because they're like, wait a minute, you use dildo and glass studded in the same sentence. Now I gotta watch.
Oh, and there were two of them.
Yeah, two of them. Yeah,
and we were comparing and contrasting.
Yeah, comparing and contrasting. So we're using the word juxtaposition with regard to dildos. I mean, how cool is that? But let's talk about this. Let's talk about this.
Like, hold on. Yeah, so Keith is confirming, yes, homeless shelter and cracking opioids, but no glass dildos. Someday, my friend. Okay, someday you'll get there.
You need to fix that. What we'll do is we'll make a couple of glass dildos and we'll send them out to you.
You just need to have faith and think dildo-y thoughts.
Well, and also just the fact, like, so he's in Manchester, England, which is like, I don't know, like how many hours ahead of us. So he's like you're losing sleep for this, dude. And like that's appreciate you.
Let me circle back to the topic, right? Life before death,
right.
Because Tommy, you had said this. You said, I believe in life before death, or they said Christians believe in life after death. I believe in life before death, and that was one of the most. And you said it wasn't original to you, but it was one of the most profound things that I had ever heard, and I shared it and I credited it to you when you when you posted it.
I'll take credit, sure.
Well, here's the thing, right? If we start dispensing ourselves or disabusing ourselves of the notion of somehow we have to be concerned with life after death, fuck life after death. You don't know what's going to happen on the other side, but you do know what's happening here.
Right.
So why suffer needlessly? See, there are some people that they ascribe some piety to suffering, and they'll say, "Oh, it's good to suffer for God." No, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, God doesn't exist. Second of all, why suffer if you can be satiated, if you can be satisfied? It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. This whole life, and this is my opinion, this whole life is all about maximizing your pleasure, maximizing your satisfaction, as long as you do it not to the expense of others. In other words, you
Hmm. Yeah.
maximize your life's pleasure without causing harm to others. And if you just simply live your life according to that paradigm, honestly, dude, you don't need theology. You don't even need philosophy. All you need is like this innate drive in yourself that says, I'm going to live my life to its maximum potential and not harm anybody in the process. And if you just simply say that, then you have experienced life before death. You have
Yeah.
had a fully formed life, and in this fully formed life, you'll develop a fully formed spirit.
Hmm.
And if you do that, then not only you become a tour guide to life to others around you. Yeah, that's right, Keith. The Beatles said, "All you need is love," and I used to say that all the time. I used to say I heard more gospel in a Beatles song than I heard in any praise or worship music.
Mm.
All you need is love, you know.
That'll preach.
And I'm gonna tell you something, man. Like there were a lot of preachers that I have preached in their church that when I said that, they're like, "Well, I gotta correct you on this because I've allowed you to preach in front of my people." I said, "Well, you good luck with that, dude, because you're not correcting anything here." You know?
For real. Yeah. I mean,
The- that,
because
that that assumed hierarchy where somebody feels they have the authority to correct you on something,
Yep.
yeah,
like that was a
that's the
sneaky
thing.
little bitch for me, like getting sucked into that where like I ended up submitting to somebody else's authority and I didn't realize it or I thought it was good.
Oh, well, that's another thing too. When you start talking about authority and submission, and I'm like, okay, who's who makes you the arbiter of authority? And why do I have to submit to you?
Yeah.
You know, and I've asked people this before, like when you start talking about scripture and all of this, I said, who made you the ultimate arbiter of scripture? Who are you? Who made you the person who decides that this is right and this is not? Who made you that? And
Yeah.
and and, and people say, well, I'm not that guy. But you're trying to be that guy.
Yeah.
You're saying, well, I'm not gonna be so bold as to say that I'm the ultimate arbiter of scripture, but here you are.
So,
And
yeah.
my thing is,
Hmm.
you know, okay, so until there's some grand conscious epiphany that says that 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 this is what the scripture actually means, until we get to that point, no one's the arbiter of scripture. No one is the ultimate decision maker for that. And everybody is, so what does that mean? Basically, the interpretation of scripture is left to the individual. And it can only be expressed and understood by the individual. And
Mm.
and and
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. If we can just get to that and say, okay, I accept that you believe X, and I'm not going to interrupt X. I'm not going to try to argue with X. I'm going to leave you to believe X.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And as long as X brings me no harm, as long as X doesn't interrupt my way of being, my way of working, my way of living, then I'm good.
How
But
do you handle it when it affects
The moment
so,
that X does influence or impact those things, now we have a problem. Because now either you're gonna have to explain why you're the ultimate arbiter of X, or you're gonna
Hmm.
have to leave me be.
how do you process it when you see that that somebody else's belief is impacting another person negatively that isn't you? Because then stepping in, like you're kind of the an arbiter of what's right or wrong for that person.
Matt, that is a really good question, and this is what I've learned is that when like let's talk about social media. On social media, I leave people to their devices. In other words, I'll see something posted and I'll look at that and say, "God damn, that's stupid," right? And then I'll just keep scrolling, right? Because if
There you
if
go.
I respond to that in the way that I normally would, I'm going to create some animus there, right? But if
Yeah,
I just say, fuck it, it's not bothering me in any way, right? But if I see Joel Osteen posting something like that, okay, then I'm like, yeah, somebody needs to say something about that because now you're talking about somebody that has a really broad sphere of influence.
hmm
And
Hmm.
if it's bullshit, and if it's something that's harmful, and if it's something that's not going to advance the cause of humanity in any way, then you need to say somebody needs to step up and speak out on it. Now, here's my thing about that is that I will talk about things on my own page. And when people come to my page and they want to contradict what I'm saying, I'm like, okay, your disagreement is duly noted, but I haven't changed my mind, and that's the end of this conversation. Now, if you're rational, you at that point you check out of the conversation. But a lot of people don't. They want to continue to argue, right? And I take that as tantamount to somebody taking a shit in my living room.
Hmm.
yeah.
You've been invited in the house, but now you what you're going to do is you're going to violate every house rule I have, and I'm not going to tolerate that. At that point, you get voted off the island. At that point, you get bounced, right? Because I'm not going through that. I'm not, eh, you know. And people say, "Oh, well, you just want an echo chamber. You want people that just agree with you." Well, not exactly. Me personally, I like an echo chamber because I like hearing my own thoughts reflected by others. Maybe that makes me a little conceited. I don't know.
No,
But
I think it's a good way to evaluate your thoughts.
but the thing is that like I don't mind anyone disagreeing. What I do mind is people who want to disagree vociferously and obnoxiously. And so I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm
Hmm.
not going to couch that. It's like if that's the
Yeah.
if that's the route that you're going down, okay, more power to you. Go do that with somebody else, but you're not going to do it here. Fuck you.
Yeah. Pretty
I was
much.
gonna say
Pretty
Tommy
much.
has experience with some of those people,
A
and
little.
people that we
Yeah.
knew from before too, like when
Hey,
we were
Yeah.
Christians, and kind of realizing that they're more of an asshole than we realized.
listen, I believe
Yeah.
I believe in practicing social media hygiene.
Hmm.
I'm
Oh yeah.
going to keep my page clean
Hmm.
and orderly in a way that's appealing to me. See,
Yeah.
social. Let's say this: hygiene is not the same for everyone, right? Because you can wash with soap and water, or you can wash with piss. Guess which one is going to make you more socially acceptable?
Yeah. That's what I found, especially like on Facebook or like other social media. Like the unfriend and block buttons have become a couple of my new best
They are
friends.
your friends. They are your friends.
Like what I loved is like after like blocking this like unfriending I didn't block him, I just like unfriended him, but then he like because of like some I don't remember what exactly, I think it was like some transphobic bullshit he was talking about, and I was like, all right, I've had enough of that. It's like you're a guy like I knew you in high school, but I didn't even like you in high school. Like you friended me like this, but then he like messaged me and he's like, oh, I can't handle like other opinions. Like, oh, you're such a wuss. I'm like, look, bitch. The idea what I've dealt with.
Those are two words, Tommy, that settle a whole bunch of shit, right? When you say, "Look, bitch,"
Yeah, I'm like, do you have any idea what the fuck I've dealt with in my life? Like your shitty opinions are nothing. Like I like it's not that I can't deal with it. It's like I just don't need you in my life anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And who's the one throwing insults?
Hey,
That's the
listen,
more
I
delicate
tell people all
snowflake.
the time. I say, look, I didn't like you in real life,
Yeah.
and and
yeah,
if you think that I'm gonna suffer that bullshit on social media, you got another thing coming. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
and people say, "Oh, well, you don't want to be taken down." I'm like, look here, you know, here's the thing. I have a pretty broad social media footprint, right? So I can pull
Oh
up
yeah.
the numbers. I can pull up the numbers and say, like, any given week, I'm reaching about 1 million people.
Damn.
That's my reach, right? So if you
Mm,
want to reach 1 million people, you're not going to reach a million people by standing on my shoulders. That shit's not going to happen. Go
yeah.
cultivate your own audience and then say what you're going to say. But if you got like 5 followers and you think you're going to come out here and shit on what I'm saying, man, fuck you.
Yeah.
That
Serious.
happens a lot.
Those are the best. Yeah. Those are the best. uh,
That's
man.
the
Well, looks
problem
like
with.
it's.
I was gonna say that's the challenge with doing reaction videos, because if the person doesn't have a big platform already and you're going to do a reaction to them, then are you helping them, or are you like offering an opposing view? Like,
Yeah. I mean, like here's the thing. People said, "Oh, well, I want to, I want to make sure that you understand my point." Okay, I understand your point. I've acknowledged your point, but I still disagree with your point. So move the fuck on.
yeah, the problem isn't I don't. The,
Yeah.
the problem isn't that I don't understand it. Is I understand it and I think it's dumb.
Yeah,
It's like because I've come across that. It seems like people have the idea. It's like, oh, but you don't agree with me. You obviously don't understand what I'm saying. It's like, no, like I get it,
yeah.
dude.
I
Yeah.
understand. I understand completely what you're saying, but I think it's full of shit. So there you go.
No. Yeah, maybe like don't have shitty opinions, and I don't know.
It's
All right.
like,
Well, I'm gonna, if it's all right with you, gentlemen, I'm just gonna. It looks like we still got a couple people watching. I'm just gonna throw out the link just in case anyone wants to
yeah,
join in. But yeah, so I just put in the comments there. There's the link if people want to join in and have a chat. Just click on it. We'll let you in, and yeah. So, but yeah, I guess beyond that, like any other thoughts you had, Derek, as far as like I don't know, like I mean, really anything, or if it's more along the lines of okay, well now there's like we've talked about like what we like left behind, but like now like moving forward, like what are you like? Where are you finding meaning, like post religion, post faith, post Christianity, whatever? Like, yeah, what are some things you'd like
that's
to leave the people with?
that's a good question. Instead of believing in DOG, come here. I believe in instead of believing in God, I believe in DOG.
At least the DOG is actually like apparently real. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and mostly he answers my concerns.
mhm.
Mostly,
Gives you like actual attention and
and he gives me feedback, even
uh,
though it's not always what I want. But let me just say this that again, I'm going to close by saying the same thing I said at the beginning that you have the right to believe in whatever you believe in. And that's fine. But when you insist that I believe as you believe, or you insist that others believe as you believe, then I think that um, you miss the mark. You miss the mark. And I would say, okay, live and let live. That if I believe or if I don't believe, and this was the thing. I had talked about this like 2 Sundays in a row. I went to church. The first Sunday I went because one of my best friends in the world, Patrick Jubert, was preaching at a church in Tulsa. And not
mhm,
only did I enjoy my time with my friend, my brother, I met a new
mhm.
friend, which was the pastor of the church.
Yeah.
And the pastor of the church was a guy that was okay with with using the word motherfucker in a sentence, When I talked to that guy and I said, and he's cool with that. I said to Jew, my friend, I said, dude, this guy's our tribe, and he said, yep, he's one of us. You know,
Nice.
so the thing is that he believes in God, he believes in Jesus. He's teaching this, but he's teaching it to people who are there to learn. He's not
Yeah.
trying to take this out and trying to proselytize and convert people.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So if you believe, that's great. And the other thing too is that I think it's a sign of spiritual maturity when you can fellowship with, love, and honor someone who doesn't believe as you do. And let me tell you, you guys, I have literally hundreds of friends who fit that category. And I tell people all the time, like my oldest two friends, I'm 61 years old. I've been friends with these guys for 59 years.
Wow.
Wow.
And
Mhm.
and then I can fan that out, and I can say there are 18 other people that I've been friends with for over 50 years.
Mm.
Well, actually, now in 2024, now that number actually goes up by 8 because there are 8 more people that meet the 50-year criteria. So,
Wow.
and all of us are all over the board, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, but these are my friends. Our friendships have survived not only time, but have survived some serious difficulties, some serious challenges. So if you believe something and what you believe it causes you to sacrifice your friendships, your relationships on the altar of your beliefs are fucked up.
Yes.
Amen. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the other thing too is that be who you are, be true to who you are, but also remember that you is growing, you is fluid, you must be agile, you must be flexible, and that you must give yourself the license to change and to grow. And if anybody else in
Mm.
your circle doesn't acknowledge, doesn't honor that right to change and grow, fuck them.
Yep. Double deuce. Yeah.
That's it. So that's where I'll close. That's yeah. I'm not going to do a Baptist close where I close and then close
Yeah.
again. You know,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
I'm
Doing encore.
I'm just waiting for you to like I'm thinking like pass the plate. I'm ready to go to the altar after that. But yeah. Yeah, but speaking of which, like our buddy Keith, who said like in the previous comments, he's like, oh, I can't, because like I said, he's watching the homeless shelter. He referred to it as a bit of a royal rumble. That actually sounds exciting. I wouldn't mind if you jumped on with that in the background. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like he says, yeah, believe what you want, but be decent. I don't see the world the same way you do, but I'm still a theist, and yeah, we still love you, man.
Yep.
But I
And
care
hey,
for and respect you
you
otherwise.
guys should get Keith on and get him to
Yeah,
go live from the shelter and not listen,
yeah,
not to try to make it a prop or anything, but I think that people who first of all give of themselves to the point where they're able to minister humanity in a form of a homeless shelter
Yeah.
is one thing, and then also I think that there are people that need to see people like that in action, and so Keith, to you, my friend, I salute you.
absolutely, yeah. And he's expressed interest in coming on. He's definitely on our list of people to have on. We'll just have to work it out with like the time zone thing. It might have to be a pre-recorded thing, but yeah, definitely want to have you on sometime, Keith. It'd be a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Man,
That
I
would be
can't
good.
believe this, man. I spent 2 hours with you guys, and it doesn't seem like that long.
Yeah, that just flew by, man.
Well, if you're ever in Cincinnati, come out drinking with us. Time will fly
Yeah.
by.
You know what? Listen, if I'm ever, what part of Ohio are you guys in?
Cincinnati,
Cincinnati.
we can
Okay.
get near there
Well,
pretty
I
quickly
have to
too.
make a trip out to Cincinnati, and then we'll have to have like major libations, and then we can all sit down like on a big sofa and just talk shit and you know and live stream that. That would be fucking
That
awesome.
sounds good. I mean, now that I can have more amounts of libations, now that I'm off
Yeah.
immunotherapy, but yeah,
Yeah, those
and
are
I got a
sad
big
times.
and I got a big couch, so
Okay, cool. So all we need is a camera and a wide angle, man. And we can.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Or I'm thinking like I'm thinking one of these days I need to make a trip out west to like hit like Tulsa and Colorado and Missouri to see like you, Jimmy, Aaron, and that'd be a good trip.
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
So
And to be honest, we need to have like a conference of atheists, agnostics, and metaphysicians. I think that would be great.
oh yeah, I mean, he's like, how many people can we get up? We can get like up to 10 people on here. So yeah, we definitely need to do something with like kind of all of us and yeah, or whoever. And yeah,
Yep.
There were a bunch of atheist YouTubers who did that. They're doing a reaction video to some big apologist, and it was a party atmosphere. It was like to see all these PhDs.
oh, was it
Probably,
the Diabolic critics?
maybe
Yeah.
was Kip Davis or Kip? What's
Yes.
his name in there?
Yeah. Dr.
Yeah,
Kip. Yeah. hmm And there was like Josh Bowen and
that was a good time.
yeah. But yeah, there's definitely like some road trips and things to be had. I believe
Absolutely.
on multiple fronts. So
I haven't been on a road trip in forever.
I know.
The
Well,
farthest
now that
west I've
I'm
been is Memphis.
Well, here's the thing. I would extend this invitation, but like Maya and I, when we get married, our ceremony is going to be very, very small. But Aaron is going to be the officiant, which is going to be
oh,
really cool.
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of other people I want to have on the show, Aaron's definitely on the list if you're
Oh
watching.
man. Eh,
We'll get you
eh,
on here some point, man.
Yeah. Aaron would
Because
love to be on.
yeah, because
And this.
I was on with him several months ago now, and like yeah, that was a great conversation. It was really cool to finally like actually connect with him, and
Yeah.
yeah, because what I loved about him was like the reason that happened was, and this is something I love about him and like his personality, the way he like approaches things is like he posted something on Facebook and I like disagreed and I said actually but his response was oh great let's talk about that and I'm
Yeah.
like that's cool
That's a good
so
Yeah.
response.
Yeah. Aaron.
yeah
Aaron is like. It's funny that Aaron and I have never met personally.
really
We've never
uh,
met personally, but I've known Aaron for almost 8 years now, and we're going into year 4 of Freology Friday.
yeah which is a
Nice.
great show which that was something I want to make sure before we go like if there's anything like not saying we need to like end it right hard end right here, but definitely want to make sure like you like let people know like where they can find you, things you're
Yep.
doing. Yeah. So if there's any like parting thoughts, otherwise we'll get to like where people can find you on the interwebs or out in the
Like
wild.
you can find me on Facebook. Derrick Day Multimedia. You can find me on TikTok or Instagram. It's Derrick E Day. You can find me on the platform formerly known as Twitter as Derrick E Day also. Uh, and then I also write a blog on Pathos called Love Minus Religion, and so and I'm
That's a great
overdue to
title.
get my blog post out for that. I'll have it out tomorrow morning. But those are the pretty much the places that you can find me.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome. All right. Well, so yeah, I mean, we were just over 2 hours now, but I feel like we could go on longer, but I do need to work in the morning. But, but yeah, definitely like this was awesome. I'm so glad this finally like worked out. And again, like thanks again for your help for
Yeah.
getting this show going. And so yeah, it was great to have you on. And yeah, definitely look forward to having you on again sometime. And
Anytime, man. Just let me know
awesome.
when and where. And
Excellent.
normally I'm in. I have a Toastmasters group, um, but I told them, hey, I'm going to be on a podcast with some really cool guys. So I said I'm not going to be able to be here tonight. And
All right.
so
All right. Well, yeah, absolutely appreciate you making the time. And one of the things like I still like I love to mention this every time is so speaking of like when we like really connected, like back when I was going through my whole like cancer experience, whatever you want to call it, like I love to explain the timeline as far as like in terms of I had people like I had because like I mentioned before as part of the whole story about all that is like so I had like some friends like come together and like pray for me like while things were still kind of but then they got worse But then when things were looking really bleak, Derrick reached out and like sent healing vibe, like you were like sending healing vibes your way, man. And and it was shortly after that things turned around. So
It's the vibes, not the prayers, man.
So I like to put it like Derrick is good all the time. All the time, Derrick is good.
Indeed.
Amen. All the things. All right. So yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out in the chat. Like Keith, Sarah, Jimmy, Emily, all you. Like we'll have to go. I'll have to go back later and look at all the comments and respond later. But yeah, appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah. So thanks again, Derrick. Like I said, have to do this again sometime, my man.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. Anytime, man. This has been a blast.
Yeah.
Good.
But speaking of in the chat, like Jimmy, definitely want to have you on sometime. Keith, like we said, Emily, like basically like anyone, like anyone who wants to come on, just reach out to us and we'd love to have, because like I said, like obviously we'll have, celebrities like Derrick on every now and then, but also we'd like, if you're just a normal person, like, cause like the way I like to treat it, like with Derrick here is like, I just considered him like a third co-host, not like our guest that we're interviewing and like whatever. But yeah. So if you want that to be you, definitely reach out, comment, or I've also had people reach out, say, hey, here's a topic I'd like to hear you guys talk about. So if there's something you want to hear us talk about,
you get Jimmy on. Jimmy will definitely cuss 50% more than I will.
At least. Yeah. But speaking of Jimmy, he has also got a show on Thursdays called Unreligious, which I'm sort of a like kind of part-time unofficial co-host. Recently, like my schedule hasn't like worked out as much to be on there, but I try to be on when I can. But so I always appreciate, like, it's always a good time. I always consider my times with Jimmy to be very cathartic.
Yep.
Like Jimmy, like he gives zero fucks.
Yeah, zero
about anything.
Actually, I think Jimmy Ligon is in the zero fucks in the negative fucks category.
Yeah, he's taking fucks.
Yeah, he's taking fucks. Yeah. He's in an absolute fuck deficit.
So if you have fucks to give, Jimmy will take them. Awesome. All right. Well, any other parting words from either of you gents?
That's it, man. It's been good being here, man, and I really enjoyed this time. This was a great show.
Yeah, like I said, it's flown by. So yeah, we'll definitely let you know. We should do this again sometime. But until then, like you said, you're on Freeology Fridays with Aaron Tomlinson. That's Fridays at what time?
7 p.m. Eastern.
7 Eastern, yeah. It's a great show. And then are you still doing Forward Live? Or?
Yeah, I'm still doing Forward Live. I didn't do it last Sunday because I was in church.
Yeah.
How dare.
And it's funny, my fiance popped my hand like 3 times during church service. So, for being a bad boy, so.
Oh, well, I'd like to hear more about that later. All right. All right. Well, all right, Matt, any other parting words or just?
It feels awkward now.
Oh, so what's our benediction before I hit the outro?
Well, it has been. May your things and stuff be forever with your people.
Forever, amen. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Abracadabra, y'all.